And for those of you who are just arriving, welcome. If you see your agenda, we were going to be starting with an opening song from the Kind Heart Women Singers, but last minute things came up and they're unable to make it. So at this time, I would like to call up Mary Metuweashing, and she's going to open us up with the opening prayer and water ceremony.
Bonjour. Bonjour, can you? Okay, it's working now. Bonjour, sunga boy, hasaganai quendish na kas, kanako gitsta, kanakan chachak, so chachak do them. Me watch quego get in the nim, Menogan in Gagi, bigger watch me guan, chitashin the man where nebe. Kitchen the nako them where na, with a squang up me, banan where nebe. You know what? You could remain seated. I'm okay that you're seated and comfortable. Bonjour. Good morning. I introduced myself in my spiritual name, Strong Standing Golden Eagle Woman. I'm a turtle clan. I'm a turtle warrior. My spirit is a turtle. I want to give thanks, and again, it's a real honor. It's always an honor for me to be asked to do the water ceremony for important events such as this. And I thank all of you, and I want to thank Keely for inviting me and making that invitation. Because water is very important to me. When we lift up that water as women, it is the responsibility and the role and the duty that we were given as women, as mothers, to lift and to take care of the water. When we lift that water, we are honoring everything. I want to acknowledge our great Creator, the Great Spirit, God, however you acknowledge that higher power that helps us and guides us to do the right thing in our lives on a daily basis. I want to give thanks to all the chiefs that are here, to the leaders, to all the helpers, to the ones that are here as frontline people that do that work in our community with respect to water, nebe, which is one of the most important elements and resources in our lives, because that is where we receive life from. When we lift that water, the reason why we lift that water as women is because we are the ones that brought that life, that carry that life for 9 months. And we are to respect ourselves at that time, to respect women, all life during that time. And when we live in that water as little human beings, that's where life begins. And as our elders tell us, that we have to go back to our way of life, to where life begins, which is inside the womb of our mothers, which is the most sacred space in a woman's body, is the womb. That's because that's where life was created. Between the man and the woman, you know, when conception starts, parenting doesn't start after the baby is born. Parenting starts when the baby has been conceived, the child life. And I give thanks for that water again today. I give thanks for that water life. The swimmers, things that live in the water, they also need to have that clean water. As well, the medicine, the plants, the plant life, I give thanks for that. But I also give thanks to the water life and everything that sustains life, that gives of themselves every day so that we could sustain our health and our wellness through those waters and through that life. I also want to give thanks for the oceans, the rivers, the streams, the fresh water. And that water, because all that water is connected in some way. And when we speak on behalf of that water as women, when we pray over that water, we are in essence spiritualizing that water. So that when we drink that water, it becomes a medicine. That water detoxifies and cleanses us and heals us. You know, we need to teach our young ones about water, that they need to drink more water because our people are becoming so ill with respect to diabetes because they're drinking a lot of pop. There's a lot of sugar that they're taking in. So I want to give thanks for this water. And that what we're going to do is we're going to come around and pass that medicine water around, and you'll each get in a little cup to share. And this is a reminder and to honor the sacredness of that water, that we still need that water. You know, as women, we are given that responsibility to take care of the water, to speak for the water, to teach our young girls and our young men, our young boys, that water is sacred because we all came from women. We all came from our mothers. Our mothers carried us. And so with that, I want to say miigwech kinanakuminanim kabasandoyak wanabe kapmatashandaman anina pichik chinandagok wanabe bemadasin hamagidunda namen Chisawanda mang yanabe, chisak twang yanabe, chiganana megwang wewana, Kabe chunip matas young, who's sananik conject, can each chance sananik, inject the scare gabin at Tigot Yonsha. So I give thanks for that water, you know, for the ones for our children, our grandchildren, so that they will have clean water, but also the ones that are going to be born, that they'll have clean water as well, so that they can enjoy drinking that water as much as we enjoy drinking that water, so that they need to be safe with that clean water. We bathe in that water. I always tell children when I do my teachings in my community or wherever I speak to children, you know, we become so spoiled that we become so comfortable that I remember going back to the days when I lived with my grandmother, and she was 94 when she passed away, of how she carried and hauled her water from the pump, you know, the ones that you just pump up and down. I remember those. And I would carry a little pail with her. She would give me a little pail and I helped her. But my grandmother was so connected to the land. She was very connected. She was a very spiritual grandmother, and how she took care of that water. So what I tell the young people when I speak to them is that, you know, after today, What I'm going to share with you today, you will never forget. You will always remember these words. What I'm going to tell you is that when you get up in the morning, with whatever on how you use that water, whether you go into the shower, you jump in the shower, when you turn that tap water around, when that water falls on you, be grateful, be thankful, because all we have to do is just turn a knob, that water flows. Because for some of the other areas, our relatives that live in Manitoba, across our nations, across our lands, the grandmother lands, they are not as fortunate. They still have, they still don't have running water, or they can't turn that tap water on. So with that, I also remember those ones that are still needing that water to flow through their taps. I was also asked to, during our prayer this morning, that to remember the Situasic and also York Factory, that they have suffered great losses in their communities. So we want to remember them in our prayers, pray for those communities. Think about them in your prayers this morning. When I share the song, I'm going to share a song. Think about them and ask for strength for those communities. Because we are all related. We are to help one another. Because we all have that common goal that we want to strive for, that we want. All we ever want is health and wellness and to be happy. That's what we all want. So with that, I thank all of you, miigwech, for giving me the honor to be here and standing here in front of you to speak about the sacredness of water, the medicine water. Miigwech. I'll share a song now.
Industry, including past and future mergers, as well as anti-competitive practices. The group will consist of 17 FTC lawyers who have expertise in a number of relevant topics. According to Bloomberg, Apple's 2020 version of its smartwatch may feature the often requested sleep monitoring features its customers have been asking for. The biggest challenge for the company has been its battery life, which is a major component to being able to offer sleep data. And finally, a Washington Post report says the U.S. took Russian trolls offline on Election Day in 2018 to stop misinformation from spreading just as voters were headed to the polls. According to an unnamed source from the Post report, the U.S. Cyber Command basically took the IRA offline. You can say
And I'd like to thank the ladies that have come forward to help me to pass that medicine water around, because that's part of our way, is to teach the women as well about their role and their responsibility as women, young women, and as mothers. Again, I want to thank all of you. The song that I shared a little while ago, there's usually 4 push-ups to the song, but I have a very sore throat and I couldn't finish the song. But what the song is talking about is miigwech manidu. Thank you, Creator. Thank you to the woman spirit that looks after that water, that takes care of that water for all of us. And the other part of the song that I did not finish singing is that thanking miigwech penesiak, thank you to the thunderbirds, because they are the ones that bring those healing rains, those cleansing rains to our earth. They are the ones that clean, but they also come to heal us and they bring life. They also bring the winds. They bring the sound of the Creator. They sound their voice when you hear the thunder coming. Then we know that that water is coming. So we prepare ourselves when that water comes. When those thunderbirds come, then we acknowledge and we sit silently, we sit quietly and acknowledge, because they are speaking to us. They are talking to us. As well, giving thanks to that grandmother moon is part of the other song, because that grandmother moon brings balance. As we have the grandfather sun, they bring balance, the female and the male, part of our way of life. And the grandmother moon brings that night light, and the grandfather sun brings the daylight during the day. So with that, again, miigwech.
Thank you, Mary, for the water ceremony, the song you shared, the prayers you lifted up for us this morning so that we could start this forum in a good way. So moving along with the agenda, we would like to begin with our opening remarks. So at this time, I would like to call up Grand Chief Arlen Dumas from Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs to bring his opening remarks.
Tanse, niwaguma ganak, nitsasanak, ntutimag, nas komon, tawi padik, psisnis taga pipigis ko yan. I'm just going to break with, as it's my custom, being a nonconformist from the north, I'm going to set my speaking notes aside and sort of do my own thing. I just want to take a few minutes here, and I want to acknowledge a couple of people. It's very important that we do take the opportunity and the time to speak of people in a good way. I want to acknowledge Elder Joe Meekons, good friend of ours at the Assembly who had just passed away recently. And I also want to acknowledge, Elder Gary McLean. It's very significant, important people. People that had dedicated certain parts of their lives to advocate and to continue to push the agendas wherever they were, and respectively in their own right, they were very influential and they were very good leaders. I remember when I first got elected into office, I had gone to my first assembly, and this gentleman, as I went to wherever it was I was sitting, because there's not much of an orientation when you get into these leadership tables, and you're just essentially guided where you have to go sit. So I started making my way to the table, and all of a sudden this gentleman with really bright white teeth and a beautiful smile gets up and introduces himself. You know, I'm Gary McLean, I'm from Lake Man, and he started just praising me and talking about, you know, the potential that he had seen and all of these things, and he was so encouraging, and he was so adamant at welcoming me to the table, and I was humbled by it because I didn't know who he was, but obviously he had a notion or an idea as to who I was, or even if he didn't, it was just how he was wanting to welcome me to the table, and I acknowledge that, and I'm very grateful for that. Gary was a special person in his own way and in his own right, and you know, and I'm glad that we're able to speak his name today, and that we're able to continue on that legacy of advocacy and the work that he had done for, you know, residential school survivors, the work that he had done for day school survivors, and that legacy and that work will continue. And I was thinking about him because he used to come to this forum all the time. He'd come and he would participate, and he would talk, and he would, you know, he would advocate, and he would challenge, and he would laugh, and all the while, you know, continuing, you know, even though he was a humorous guy, it was always his way of making laughter a teaching tool. And I just wanted to take a few moments and acknowledge our good friend who'd passed on, and that we continue his legacy, and we keep him in our thoughts as we deliberate over the next couple of days. So thank you very much. I just wanted to say a few words for Gary and Elder Mekons. So thank you. So just in general, everyone, I just wanted to be here today. I want to come and acknowledge everyone that's here in your respective ways, that you're advocates, and that you're helping facilitate things for our people. And I want to acknowledge the chiefs that are in the room. I see a few chiefs here. Hello, bosses. Good to see you. You know, our chiefs, I always take it personally in a good way when our chiefs take time to come here and be with us. To those of you who you know, we all exist in our own realms, but it's actually very significant when a chief can come and spend some time with us in a different way, because of the magnitude of events and the magnitude of responsibilities that fall on our chief's shoulders. So when they've come here to spend some time with us, it's actually very significant that they do that, because I'm telling you, there's a million other things, there's a million other demands that our chiefs have on them, and they're being pulled all over the place, our chiefs and our counselors. But so I want to thank the ones that are here for taking that time to come and share some time with us, and ensure that we're moving in the direction. With that said, I also want to thank the chiefs for their confidence, and for the direction that they've given us to continue to move in the way that we're wanting to move. You know, our chiefs believe in our people. Our chiefs believe in each and every one of you, in your abilities to help us do our jobs, and that is why there was an incentive to push in the direction that we need to push, and that you know, we have complete confidence in our people. We have confidence in our abilities and in our capabilities, and in the way that we need to look out for ourselves, because truly at the end of the day, when all is said and done, only we can look after ourselves, because we know what it is that is needed, and we know that what is required for our people, and we have to continue moving in that way. With that said, the next time you hear somebody ask you if they want to build your capacity, please tell them where to go, right? Because when you need to build somebody's capacity, what is the inference? What does that mean? You know, Brendan, I need to build your capacity. It means you don't have any, Brendan. But I know otherwise. I know the truth. I know that our people are very capable. I know that our people have all the capacity that they need. We just need the opportunities to continue to build ourselves up and move forward and facilitate what we need to do and how we need to move forward. I want to acknowledge you know, you apologize if I mess up your name, but I believe her name is Josie from headquarters. You know, I'd had the opportunity to sit and meet with Josie a few months back, and it's actually refreshing when you meet someone who's willing to go in a different direction, who's willing to sort of take an opportunity and believe in their partners and move forward in a constructive way, and have that faith in our region and in our people to ensure that we're moving in the direction that we want to move, and that we will continue to do that, and we will continue to build upon those relationships that we have. You know, I want to also acknowledge Stephen Trainer. You know, I was recently elected Grand Chief, and we had an evacuation in our communities to the north. So I'd run out to go and be supportive of our people, and then all of a sudden, you know, at 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, you have this individual standing on the street helping people carry their bags, and that was Stephen Trainer. And I thought, that's very unusual, Stephen, for a bureaucrat of your caliber to be out on the street at 2 o'clock in the morning. And he said, well, it's an emergency. We got to help our people, you know. And it's that caliber of people that we have to continue to work with, and continue to push, and continue to challenge in believing in ourselves and the solutions that we can bring forward, and the things that we're going to do for ourselves. And I know that we're going to do it. I want to also commend our partners, you know, at the Red Cross. You know, recently the chiefs had mandated the Assembly to sign a collaboration agreement with the Red Cross in order to continue figuring out innovative ways to find resources and abilities for our people to continue taking more ownership and control over the variety of aspects of our communities. And I want to acknowledge the Red Cross, because I can tell you as a former chief, it truly is a breath of fresh air. So what would happen is in a remote and isolated community that I had come from, once in a while, you know, Mother Nature, you know, would flood out the railway. And our people, you know, up north, especially where I come from, everybody shops. You go shopping one day a month. So everybody would pile on a train, and we all leave town, and then we all go shopping in the Paw, Flin Flon, you know, Creighton, all that surrounding areas. And then we load up that train, and then we start traveling back. But on the way back, the railway floods out. And then the people have to go back, and they all get stranded. So it was the second year in a row where this had happened to me. So I called, and I said, what am I supposed to do? So I called my contact at the department. They said, oh, you just need to call Red Cross. I was like, okay, who are these guys? Well, they're the new blah, blah, blah. All right, I'll give it a try. So I called them. I don't remember the contact's person at the time. Hi, this is my emergency. They're like, all right, Chief, no problem. Send all your people to such and such hotel. Somebody will be there, and everything's good. Don't worry about it. So I hung up the phone, and I called back to make sure I called the right number, because previously, unfortunately, our partners prior to the Red Cross, the first thing they would have done is, well, are you a liar? Is the first question they would have asked me. Then they would have said, well, why weren't your people more responsible? Did they return ticket before they left? I don't know. That's not how people... Well, why weren't they more proactive? I'm sure there's other ways they can get home. You know, instead of removing my burden, I begin to have a conflict with people who are supposed to be looking after the needs of my people. And anyway, I'd always end up getting what I wanted, but that's besides the point. The point is that our partners are supposed to be working with us, and we need to be guiding the direction where we need to go, and we will continue to do that. You know, I see some of our chiefs here who have been very innovative in their own right and doing things, working with their tribal councils. We need to build upon those strengths. We need to grab upon all those success stories that we have and continue to build with those innovative things that have been done and continue to build upon them so that we can look out for ourselves. Because we can do it, and we're more than capable. We have the abilities, we have the acumen, we have the skill sets, and we have the people in line to help us do these things. We just have to have the willing partners, and I believe all of those things are lining up. I also want to commend, the work of some of our MKO communities and the things that they do, and that we have to continue facilitating what we can for our nations. And I can tell you that as Grand Chief, I will continue to advocate on behalf of our nations to continue getting those resources and directing them in the direction that they need to go, and that we will continue to look after our own people. So Igo se, kinanask now, keep up the good work. Thank you very much, and give yourselves all a round of applause. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Grand Chief, for your opening remarks. I also want to acknowledge that us being able to meet in this beautiful building. So on behalf of Peguis First Nation, I would like to call up Chief Hudson to bring opening remarks on behalf of them.
Good morning. I just want to give thanks for being here this morning, and certainly giving thanks for the ceremony that was done this morning and the song that was sung. Flood preparedness. I know that's the title of our conference, and there's many items that fall under preparedness, but there still is a lot of work needing to be done in terms of not only our response, but our recovery in our communities. And, Peguis is one that has been impacted going back many years, and still today we're impacted. And I know, the 4 communities in the Interlake, along with communities on both Lake Manitoba and Lake Winnipeg, continue to experience flooding and issues surrounding floods. There's much work that needs to be done, and the way we need to do it is in a collaborative effort in terms of working amongst all our communities, but also working with government. And also, we should be having people from Manitoba Hydro attend these events just to listen to the impacts, to listen to the ways that water in which they use to generate power to help Manitoba Hydro make their money, how it impacts our communities. I think that it's so important to be able to express and to hear the impacts, not only our communities, but are solely impacted. A lot of people use that today as still our way of life. I know at least a handful of trappers in our community of Peguis that still go out and live off the land, live off the animals, and how that impacts their way of doing things. And I pay homage to that because I myself was taught that at a young age, but maybe went a different direction in terms of what I do today. But I still, keep in touch with a lot of our people that do those type of things and continue to protect our rights as individuals, because that's our way of life. Going back many years, fishing, hunting, trapping, harvesting off the land, and how this water impacts those things. I know in our communities there's a huge impact as far as negative consequences in terms of flooding and many other events. But the people that benefit greatly from making decisions in terms of creating these problems, these issues, they should be here. And that's something, you know, I just want to express openly, and certainly give thanks, you know, for government people being here, because given climate change is happening, these things aren't going away anytime soon. And I could only see it increasing as far as the impacts of our communities. And, you know, I feel for our community. Even just this morning and yesterday, there's people wanting to return home because of the floods going back to, in our community, 2009, 2010. And that's just not a effective way or a proper way, you know, in dealing with these things. We need to get our people back in our communities and understand what it is that is impacting our communities. So I do give thanks, you know, for our gathering. I guess in terms of that future, you know, we have to do things on a collaborative effort. There are partnerships that need to be made. I certainly appreciate, you know, the people at Red Cross in helping us today. But it is us, and I know our Grand Chief had spoken upon it, it is us that will solve these problems, and we solve them together. But we also need our partners at the table. If there are true partners, they need to be here and to listen to these impacts. And that's something I just wanted to express this morning. But I want to give thanks for being here, you know, at Assiniboia Downs. So it seems to be a gathering place, more common to us. And, you know, I give thanks for that. But also, you know, the elders that were spoken of, Gary and the elder that was buried yesterday, Joe, he was, they're both very important people in our communities that we lost. And I just want to acknowledge them, and also acknowledge we lost a former chief. I think it was last week, Chief Kelly Bunn from Birdtail Sioux. He's been a chief there for many years, off and on. So I just want to acknowledge him also, because as stated, you know, the work that we do is not only for our communities, but for us overall, all First Nations. So I just want to express those acknowledgements and give thanks for the work they've done throughout their lifetime. Miigwech.
Thank you, Chief Hudson, for again allowing us to meet here. Next, I would like to call up, on behalf of Manitoba, Kitinawi, Ogamagana, Grand Chief Garrison City, to bring opening remarks.
Tanse, tutemak, nitisanak, niwagumaganak, minanite niwap mitaguk, kaginaw, kagine peru teguta, kitsigegon utse, aga kitatamiskat now. I want to thank the Treaty 1 nations that have allowed us to convene in their territory. Thank you so much. And also want to thank our grandmother elder for the ceremony that she offered on our behalf, reminding us of the importance of the water that we were gifted with, that we rely on a daily basis. So thank you, Mary. Miigwech. I also want to acknowledge the chiefs that I see here from the north and from the south, because I believe that there are a lot of common issues that we face, both north and south, and it is those issues that we need to collaborate and unify ourselves and moving those issues forward together. I believe it's important many times that we need to stand together to present a united front on the things that plague our nations. And I'm very thankful to be here. And I want to welcome our Grand Chief back. I know he's been away for a while, and I just say our prayers were with you, brother. And we want you to know that, and also want to commend Chief Hudson for stepping in for our Grand Chief. Thank you so much. And I want to commend AMC this morning for having this forum. And I think it is a forum that is very important, that we need to have a forum where we can begin to discuss how we can prepare ourselves and how we can be proactive on things that we know that happen far too often. And it really impacts our First Nations. As Chief Hudson was referring to the realities that they have to face because of the flooding in their territory. And it's, as they say, the struggle is real because it impacts your home, your family directly, and your community. And it is those things that we need to continue to think about ways to be proactive, to minimize the damage as much as possible. And that's why this forum is here, that we can walk away with strategies and ideas how we can better prepare ourselves to protect our nation, to protect our people, to protect our homes, because that's important. And historically, the waterways were very important to our people. Prior to European contact, those were our highways. They provided sustenance, and also the trade routes were very important to our people. It sustained us since time out of mind, since time immemorial. That was the source of our livelihood, by navigating those waters and using those waters to feed our families, to feed our people. But because of European contact and colonization, those waterways have largely been obstructed through river diversion and hydroelectric projects. And those things that we have to live with, the impacts of hydro projects. And I come from Pimichikamakri Nation. I'm one of the 5 nations that was affected by hydro development. And I've seen firsthand the impacts, not only the environment, the destruction of hunting and trapping territories, but also even simple things like where kids used to go and swim, and also where people used to go and have recreational activities for their families were taken away, and that children became sick because of the fluctuation of the water. And those things that we deal with continually after 40 years of the Northern Flood Agreement. So those waterways have largely been impacted. And how do we begin to recover? As Chief Hudson said, there's a recovery process. And it's time to start recovering from the impacts. So going forward, being prepared. And I'm thankful there's so many people here that are there on the ground whenever there's a catastrophe. Whenever there's a crisis that happens on our lands, our people are mobilized and they're there. Sometimes with sandbags and sometimes with construction equipment to try to minimize the damage. It's those people that always step up. And I must say that we value your commitment. We value the work that you do. And I'm thankful that many of you are here. And there's many that are in our First Nations They're always ready to mobilize, and we could not do anything without them. And I'm thankful for their service to their communities. And another thing that I wanted to mention is climate change, no doubt, is impacting the world. It impacts our country, and it also impacts our First Nations. And it will have an impact on our people. And we need to figure out a way how we can prepare ourselves from the effects of climate change. Because I think that having a plan and strategy in place from the First Nation perspective, I think will better service our people. And I think on the political front, we need to be prepared not only on the ground, but also politically. And there's also legal considerations to be had, because there's laws that are being broken. There are rights that are being severed when these hydroelectric projects and different kinds of corporate interests are trumping the lives of our people and the welfare of our people, the well-being of our people. There are legal considerations. So we have to think of those things as we go forward. And our rights are being affected whenever there's a major project that is being undertaken. And we see that on the news from Kiosk. The things that happen, the racism that exists, and the violation of our women. These are all things that happen because of hydroelectric projects. So we need to be prepared going forward. So I don't want to spend too much time here, because I know that Grand Chief Dumas doesn't like it when I talk too much. But I just want to say thank you for hosting this forum, and I know that we will walk away from this forum with better ideas to prepare our communities. So thank you for being here. Kinanaskumit now ako katsawin mi guao kisemantu. Egusani.
Thank you, Grand Chief Sati. So next, on behalf of Jerry Daniels from the Southern Chiefs Organization, I would like to call up Chief McLean from Lake McLeod Treaty 2 First Nation.
Good morning, bonjour. First of all, I'd like to thank Mary for the opening prayer here. I'm very honored to my community member. I'm very proud of her and what she represents, the grandmothers. With that, I'll say greetings on behalf of the Southern Chiefs Organization. I'm the chief of the Lake Manitoba First Nation. I've been one of the flooded communities from 2011, 2014. In the 80s, 90s, you know, the problems still exist in the Interlake area, along with my colleague, Chief Glenn Hudson and his community, and also Lake St. Martin, Little Saskatchewan, Dauphin River, and Penimutang. It's a problem that's there. It's a problem that, you know, it's not created by us. It's created by the government of Manitoba, who, which I think they created a structure. You know, they had engineers engineer the problem, and it's still there. So, you know, it's been a long battle for us, you know, for all of our First Nations with the government in terms of trying to build our communities where we don't flood. You know, they can put any kind of structure in place, but when you're opening up the mouth of the Assiniboia River into Lake Manitoba, while you're creating a water that's coming and has nowhere to go but overland flooding, inland flooding everywhere. And, you know, we've spoken to Indian Affairs many times. We've spoken to the province many times. Nobody wants to take ownership of what's happening in our communities. But when you ask them, oh, they blame the province. So it's a province. When you ask them, oh, it's Indian Affairs. You know, just recently, last week, we went to a meeting with the department, and I didn't want to throw you under the bus, Vern, but I'm going to have to. you know, moderate, low to moderate. They say no risk of flooding, but in most communities, you see the snow is over the road, like, you know, in the ditches. What do? Do you wait for it to melt, flood your community again, or do you just, oh, it's going to be a slow melt? Well, I don't think it's going to be a slow melt. You know, I think it's going to be a quick melt. The water's coming again. You know, Peguis is going to probably gear up for another. You pinpoint the blame and pitch it at them so many times where you have to take ownership, and we've completed a flow through for our community. So if the water comes in, it goes right back out again. We trap it, it stays out.